What's up guys, today we'll be talking about the Zephyrus G with the Ryzen 7 3750H and the GTX 1660 Ti Max-Q. Now I'm going to preface this video by saying this is a $1,200 laptop, and I think they made both poor hardware choices regarding the specs that bottleneck the performance quite heavily, as well as general sacrifices to the user experience like the 1x1 Wi-Fi card and the super dim display. It's also priced well into the upper end of GTX 1660 Ti laptops, so you expect it to be good. And for this review, I will occasionally use the Helios 300 as a reference point for a comparison. So that's the brief overview. Let's begin with the build. Structural rigidity is good for a $1,200 laptop. The screen flex is normal for a plastic 15-inch screen, and the keyboard deck is reinforced with aluminum underneath, so the chassis is fairly stiff and it feels fairly solid when carrying it in my hand. The black finish kind of feels like plastic to me, but it does do a good job at resisting oils from my hands, and the edges of the laptop are rounded so they don't dig into your arm. Hinge tension is excellent with very minimal screw wobble. Not a big fan of the look of the top. The whole glowing red logo and the two-tone brush finish looks kind of dated. I would just extend the black finish of the interior to the top and do what Razer does with their black on black logo, but it does do a good job on build quality. The keyboard I'm not the biggest fan of, although most of that comes from the heavy actuation force, which negatively impacts my accuracy above 80 to 85 words per minute. If I'm typing at anything above that, I don't hit the keys as hard, and so I start to miss some of my key presses. Key travel is a bit on the shorter side. It's got 3-stage white LED backlighting, no RGB. The arrow keys are kind of small, but the main thing is the heavy actuation force required, and it's really only applicable to fast typists. The trackpad is plastic, and despite using Windows precision drivers, the acceleration curve is inconsistent, tracking isn't accurate, the cursor will occasionally skip around, and it's just not smooth at all. It's usable. Like, I've used trackpads before that just were not usable and required me to bring a mouse with me, but for $1,200, it's in line with what I would expect from a gaming laptop. On the left and right, you have power in, gigabit Ethernet, HDMI 2.0, a USB-A port, USB-C without Thunderbolt 3, a headphone jack, along with 2 more USB-As on the right. Unlike most gaming laptops, or any laptop in general, these actually have fairly good speakers. The bass response is quite impressive, but if you flip the laptop over and you listen to the drivers facing towards you, they sound much cleaner and more detailed. In that position, they are the third best speakers of any laptop behind the MacBook Pro and the Zephyrus S from 2018 in second place. Another decision that I do not understand is their move to use a 1080p 60Hz display with 6-bit color. First of all, the Helios 300 uses a 144Hz panel that's also on a $1,200 laptop. The other thing is brightness, because either your display is bright enough or it's too dim, and this is always too dim. For reference, 250 nits is about as low as I can go indoors in a decently lit space, 350 nits being very comfortable in well-lit indoor spaces, and 450 minimum for outdoor use, preferably 500 or above. The dimmest screen that I've measured prior to this was around 270 nits, so 180 is shockingly dim. Color accuracy and color gamut are also quite weak, partially because of the 6-bit panel, so if you calibrate it, it's not really going to do much since it is a hardware limitation. They do have a 120Hz option available, but from other reviews that I've seen, it is also relatively underwhelming compared to the standard 144Hz panels. Okay, let's talk about the performance, and I'll pull up the benchmarks on screen now. The two biggest bottlenecks are the CPU and the single channel memory. This is a quad-core CPU with a TDP of 35 watts, but for me, it averaged at around 15 watts with a peak power draw of 19 watts, which is consistent with other reviews that I've seen. So I would classify this as a direct competitor to Intel's Ultrabook CPUs, not their H-series 45-watt CPUs that you find in most gaming laptops. And in a game like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it is maxing out the CPU and bottlenecking the graphics card completely. I'm not entirely sure if these mobile Ryzen CPUs also benefit from faster memory like AMD's desktop CPUs. I don't have laptop memory to test, but even with Intel CPUs, where it usually doesn't matter as much as AMD CPUs, I've personally measured a 20 to 30% decrease in gaming performance just because it's not running dual channel memory. I could continue to go on about why the performance sucks, but the benchmarks speak for themselves. Thermals and fan noise are good for the hardware that it's running. So it's maintaining 15 watts at 89 degrees with the fans on max and 81 degrees at 12.4 watts, which is quite underwhelming given that the standard 6-core 9750H is rated for 45 watts and that the fans are quite loud under load. One thing that really surprised me is the battery life. There's a 78 watt-hour battery inside and I'm confidently pulling 8+ hours of battery life, and part of that is due to the low power CPU as well as the super dim display. So the conclusion to this review is fairly simple. As a gaming laptop for $1,200, I think the Helios 300 is a much better option than this in nearly every aspect aside from battery life, the speakers, and the portability, although both are fairly thin and light laptops. The performance is severely bottlenecked, and it's also running a 60Hz screen where 144Hz panels are standard now and have been since 2018. The other use case I thought of would be a thin and light 15-inch laptop with decent GPU performance and full-day battery life, which would make it compete with the MSI PS63 and the Surface Laptop 3, but those all have significantly better keyboards, trackpads, a better screen, and much better Wi-Fi. This thing suffers quite heavily for a general use laptop for $1,200. Unless you find the upgraded 120Hz model for around $900 to $1,000 and you're comfortable with getting inside to replace the Wi-Fi card, I would personally skip this and look elsewhere. Okay, that's going to end this review. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.